Hello, guys. This is your host of the Jebb and Greencast. This is Vinyl Man Jebb, and I have Matt Harris of Oranger, the Posies, and he worked with Roky Erickson as well. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you doing, man?
Good, doing really well. Glad I got a hold of you and coming on the podcast. We're gonna play one of Oranger's song here for you guys while we're waiting here to get everything started, and after that, we'll have an awesome talk about all the music you've done and be an enjoyable experience.
Sweet.
So let me set that up for everybody. Here we go.
Nobody loves you. They love you. They love you. I'm thinking of you. Above you. Above you. Down in the water. They saw her. They saw her. Nobody loves you. They love you. They love you. Look at them come, sucking their thumbs, and it's too late for you. They crawl around, knees to the ground, and it's too late for you now. Nobody loves you. They love you. They love you. I'm thinking of you. I love you. Oh, I love you. I'm looking over a four-leaf clover. Here comes a dozer with over, with over. Look at them come, sucking their thumbs, and it's too late for you. They crawl around, knees to the ground, and it's too late for you now. Nobody loves you. They love you. They love you. I'm thinking of you. I love you. Oh, I love you. Down in the water, they saw her. They saw her. Nobody loves you. They love you. Oh, they love you.
All right, we should be back. Matt, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, man.
Awesome. That was an amazing song. I wanted to ask, so for a view of the city from an airplane, what was the inspirations on that song? And I'll let you go off on that.
That uh that particular song, let's see, that's off of Quiet Vibration Land. So that was sort of right around the first real big internet boom in the late 90s.
Oh, wow.
And that song's kind of our take about that.
Ooh.
So that's sort of what it's about, is how San Francisco was changing in such a drastic way so quickly because of kids getting money in their hands at such a young age, like ourselves. So
Oh, interesting. So it kind of throws back to the reference at the time, and explains, in your own way and your own experiences with that, and that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a little line in there. I think it's they caught the new bus, which
Ah.
if which the new bus is actually referring to a new bus SCSI terminal in the
Oh,
lyrics.
really?
Yeah, it's a new bus, NUBUS, instead of a new bus. So
Oh, so it's a cool little
there's
like
all
play
these
on
there's these
words. Yeah,
yeah there's a lot of play on words in that
I
song.
like that.
That's also a good friend of ours. Oh shit, what's Tom's last name? He played in a band called Persephone's Bees,
Oh, okay.
and Tom was playing guitar. He did that. He just did that sort of Jeff Beck rave up sort of Birds guitar solo in the middle
I
there.
hear that, and that's what I said it to my dad this morning because he's a big Birds fan. That's exactly what I was thinking.
That's
And
exactly
I
what
hear
we were
that
going
jangly
for.
power pop, kind of sound, and that's awesome.
Yeah,
So
lots of kind of Holly's vocals in there
uh,
too. Yeah.
that's awesome. So who was in Oranger? Let's talk about Oranger for a bit and explain the band and stuff like that. So was because I remember you were mentioning some cool things about that before.
So Oranger started. Mike Drake and I were in Overwhelming Color Fast together,
Okay.
and we left Overwhelming Color Fast to start Oranger. And we had an old college buddy of mine by the name of Jim Lindsay, and
Okay.
he was living out in Des Moines, and we got him to move back to San Francisco, and then we started Oranger in '97,
Oh,
'96 actually.
that's awesome.
And then we had Mike had been in a band called American Sensei, and so the original version of Oranger was actually Mike and I on guitar, this guy Chad Dyer on bass, and Jim on drums. And we did a couple of recordings, never released anything. And Chad wanted to kind of go in a different direction than we were going, so he left right away before we even put out the first album.
Oh, wow.
And so the first album we recorded in our rehearsal space on an 8-track cassette, a 488 Tascam cassette player, and and it was just the three of us. And I engineered and did everything on that one. And then
Oh,
I
that's
did a
awesome.
lot of the engineering on almost all the records.
Ah,
Uh,
cool.
and then Mike did a lot as well, mixing wise. And we had a guy, Damian Rasmussen, who did a lot of work with us as well, who's worked with a lot of bands in the Bay Area over the years. So yeah. So then Oranger kind of evolved. We got Patrick Main, who I went to high school with, who's a great keyboard player. He joined us on the second album. And then about the time we did the third album, Bob Reed from Overwhelming Color Fast joined us. And so, because when Chad left, I moved over to bass, so we were a 3-piece. And then Patrick came in, and we were a 4-piece. Patrick played keys and sang. And then Bob came in, and then we had 2 guitars, keys, bass, drums. So it was a nice big full thing by the
Oh,
time we got
yeah.
to Shut Down the Sun. So yeah, it was cool.
I like
And
the name
that's
for a Quiet Vibration Land of Tommy reference there. So that's
oh
really
yeah, it was a
cool.
total Tommy reference.
That's
We were
awesome.
big Who nerds, so
Same here.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, so yeah, that was a big influence on us through the early days, especially like that the first album, Doorway to Norway. There's a lot of Who kind of
Woohoo.
alliterations and references. So you have to dig that one up and listen to
Oh, definitely.
it.
Definitely will do. And I like that it's all on YouTube, that you're able to, go back and check the music out, and I'm able to listen to all the albums right there. So it's awesome.
Well, there's a reason, and it's a good reason, is that Mike is the head of YouTube Music now.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
incredibly cool.
he's one of the people that helps run it. So he's got a big
Well, hey,
department,
if
and
you let him know about this, we can have him on. With you guys, if you guys are close, we can do a
yeah,
discussion of
absolutely.
another band. That'd be awesome.
I'm gonna see him Saturday. So
Oh, sweet. That's
yeah,
incredible. I did not even know. That's see the connections you make, guys, right?
yeah,
That's incredible. That's awesome.
it's
Hey,
so
and
funny, huh?
YouTube Music looks really good now. My band's and stuff on there, so I thank you to him
Cool.
for getting
Yeah,
this
yeah.
moving and getting us all artists out there to keep
There's
going.
a yeah, there's a lot of people that do it, but he's
That's
one of the
awesome.
many people that are part of that whole team,
Oh,
and
that's incredible.
but he's been with them now for a while, working on a lot of stuff, and it's he's enjoying it very
And
much.
it's looking really
So,
good. So, yeah, thank
yeah,
you. Thank you.
yeah, they kind of upped the game with Spotify and all of the other companies kind of coming at it, and they've done a really excellent job. And I that's what I use. I use YouTube stuff only.
Yeah, because I
Exclusively these
use
days.
our like Spotify and stuff and try to list, but I really prefer YouTube because it's just the amount of like there are times with the artists getting paid and stuff, and right now it's a nice to have the protection so if people use your music and stuff like
Yeah, I
that, so it's
actually get
awesome.
royalties from
Yeah,
them, believe it or
exactly.
not.
That's awesome.
Unlike my point oh 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 1 cent for, I think the Posies,
Hmm.
we had a song on Every Kind of Light. I can't remember
Yeah.
which one, but I think it had like, it was upwards of close to 1 million hits. And I think I got a check for like $30. I was like, oh man, remember the days when if it was a penny a play, you'd at least have 100 grand,
Yeah,
but
like it was
you know,
actually like a thing, and now
instead it
it's
was like
yeah.
maybe a steak dinner. That was it.
And it's like, and you start when you're starting, right? You make music because it's a passion. But
Right.
then
You're
when
not doing
you've
it for the
been there
money.
and you need the money to either supply funds to keep living, off the stuff, it doesn't become fun anymore. And it's like, oh my God, it's not why I made music in the first place.
Yeah, gear, gas, and records aren't free to
No,
make.
exactly, right? It's crazy. But it also shows, it's like, I'm glad that the times are kind of catching up and trying to at least. So actually,
Yeah.
you mentioned the Posies. So you were on Every Kind of Light. Is that the one that you were on for
There's
bass
the
playing?
I was on that one and on Blood Candy.
Oh, okay, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Every Kind of Light though was the first record that I think the Posies that Ken and John had actually let the rhythm section. Everybody co-wrote on that record.
Wow.
We wrote that
Sweet.
as if everybody split it quarter of that record. So
Yeah, the
we
earlier stuff, they were very much just them, and I know from speaking with Arthur Roberts and other members too, that it was very
yeah.
like cutthroat with them too. But that's cool that they actually opened it
Well,
and tried to.
that's what happened was we really didn't have any material, so we
Ah,
had studio time booked, and we were like, shit, man. I thought I might be coming home on Tuesday, and fly out there on Sunday and go in the studio on Monday, and if nothing happened, we are gonna call it a day. But we wound up writing a song a day, and all of us were involved in it, and yeah, I mean, 10 days later, we had that record.
that's incredible.
Yeah,
And it's a great record. Every kind of like for me. So going back, like a lot of people like that's like the one of the Posies albums that isn't as top rated, which
right.
I don't care. That's one of my favorites. I remember turning on the Windows Vista computer and
Oh
finding
yeah,
that. And now I knew
yeah.
the Posies ahead of time. I knew them from Dear 23 because my dad had the cassette. But to
Mhm.
see a Posies album come with the computer, I was like,
Yeah,
this is pretty freaking cool. And I
that
was like,
was
this is
huge.
awesome.
That
Yeah,
was
that's
huge,
awesome.
huge
So
for us. We actually did get paid for that, which was
that's
thank the
awesome.
Lord.
So did they like
So
contact you for like a brand deal, or how does that? Do you remember how that
yeah,
worked, or how does that
well,
work?
I think Ken and John kind of set it up. They had some kind of connection through Microsoft up in Seattle,
Oh, that's awesome.
and somebody from there. I'm not sure how the deal went down. I just remember them telling us that having to sign all the paperwork and everything and reading through the contract, and I was like, oh, so it's going to be coming with every computer that has Vista on it. I was like, that's great. Let's do it.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Because
hell yeah,
that's
that's
getting
good
your
deal.
record out there. And a lot of people used that some of those songs
Yeah,
for videos on YouTube
I've
and
like
stuff
I
that
turned on
they
the video and I'm
made in
like, that's
Windows.
the Posies.
Yeah, I know it was great. So that
Yeah.
was definitely a nice
I would
windfall to
love
have
to
for
get
me
a
right
vinyl
there.
reissue, but I know those things are expensive to do. So like that's the one I've been like I talked to Ken about, like both me and to Tyler too, because we both really like that album.
Did they
Is
do a vinyl on that?
I don't think so. That's why I'm hoping because they just did the
Yeah,
reissues for Amazing Disgrace, Dear 23, the and
yeah,
Frosting on the Beater, and I got the whole thing. I got the T-shirt, I got the socks, and I got all the CDs for the bonus tracks. I went like
nice.
$200 in. You're
Yeah,
welcome, Ken
yeah.
and John. And I got all this. I got a Success album. I actually got an original pressing of Success back with when Brian Young was on drums, and you had
Right.
and all that, and it was really
And Joe
cool.
Bass.
Yeah, and Joe, yeah. Um, and to have that signed by the two of them is insane. And when I brought it in, they were surprised I had it. That was the coolest thing. And we actually have an Amazing Disgrace test pressing too. So we have a
Oh,
lot of
wow,
cool. My
cool.
dad found a Tommy Keene, or not Tommy Keene, Tommy K. Tommy Keene's a good artist too.
Yeah,
Tommy K. Pressing of it. So it was really cool. Just like, so I'm a Posies fan myself, but
cool.
it's cool to have other things like you got Oranger and also hey, Roky Erickson's one of my favorites. So I definitely want to get into that.
Oh, yeah.
How was working with Rocky? Or-
It was interesting. As you can imagine, or he was a very, he was a trip to
yeah.
work with. He never called me by my name until after I left the band.
Really?
He would just say, "Hey, man, how's it going, man? All right, man." He said that to everybody. And then I went to see him play with the newer band that Jagar had put together, and I
Yeah.
went backstage and I saw him and he goes, "Hey Matt, how's it going?" And I was like, "Whoa!" I
You
was
know
with
my
him for like
name.
it's like I was with them for almost 4 years and he never
Wow.
called me by my name. Wouldn't even sign a book for me.
Really?
He was really a trip.
I know the Meat Puppets played with him and did a show with him because I met the Meat Puppets recently and they were talking about him too. So it's just one of my favorite psych writers of all time. So it's really cool to actually talk with someone that's been, working with him. So
Yeah, how that happened was Kyle Ellison, who played with the Butthole Surfers.
yeah, oh yeah,
He Kyle was hired to play guitar for him,
really,
and Kyle Schneider, who played with when I played with Ian Moore, Kyle had played drums with us, and I knew the Kyles, and somehow Kyle Ellison had been contacted by Rocky's camp saying, "Hey, can you put together a band for Rocky? He wants to
wow,
do his solo stuff from like the Evil One and like
ooh,
more of the
yes,
'70s stuff." And so they called me. I was actually driving my mom to the airport at the time. She was about to go to Scotland for half a year.
oh wow,
And we're like right by LAX, and I get the phone call and I hang up and I'm like, "You're never going to believe this, Mom. I just got called to play with Roky Erickson." And
my
she was
all
like,
time,
"What?"
my all time man.
And
Oh, that's
literally I was
amazing.
on a plane like 4 days later and I was out there, and then we went to Europe and did a ton of touring. And then Kyle Ellison actually won one New Year's. We had a couple of gigs with the Flesh Tones in New York City for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And Kyle he'd had a shoulder problem. He had to have surgery and he couldn't play. And so I recruited Ian Moore to come and play. So it was the Ian
Wow.
Moore. It was the Lossy Coils trio basically with Rocky.
That is really cool, and
And I
I'm a huge
actually
fan of the Butthole Surfers. To hear that is amazing. So that's awesome.
that's the recording I think that I was telling you about that I have.
Oh that's
That's
okay.
that's Ian playing guitar on that stuff.
Ah,
So yeah, I have both of those shows in New York City,
that
but
is awesome.
I haven't been given the authority to put
No,
those
I
out
understand. Yeah,
yet.
of
So.
course, of course. They gotta. No, it's just cool to be able to like listen to some of the stuff and cool that I was able to send you the medley that I'm doing for my show and to hear someone say, "Hey, that's cool that you're doing a." Because I was like worried like doing a medley but I'm like if the people don't know the song and I Walked with the Zombie is probably the most repetitious.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
it's fun when you know the song, but when you
yeah,
don't, people are gonna be like, "What is this?" So I did the medley of "Don't Slander Me," and then I'm doing with Arthur and Dave Fox from Frosting on the Beater on an album coming up with my stuff. I'm doing "Burn the Flames." So
no,
I thought
cool,
to throw "Burn the Flames" in with that "Stand by Me" progression of chords.
yeah, totally.
It's perfectly fits, and I think people will not even know the song but enjoy the
Yeah,
vibe.
it's
So it's really
fun, you
cool.
know. That's
Yeah.
the whole point.
And I'm throwing Tommy references all over. I'm wearing my Tommy shirt too that day. I love the Who
Nice,
just as
nice.
much. I'm a huge. I actually just got Who Sings My Generation on vinyl original press.
Oh,
Got it
nice.
real cheap, so I was excited.
Did you ever get a chance to see him live?
No, I'm kind of really with the new album coming out, with just with Pete and Roger. I'm might go. I'm really tempted just because I know now. My dad got to see Entwistle at the Fore and Aft in New
Yeah.
York, and my dad always tells me, and Brad, I'm like, that's awesome because I'm a huge Entwistle solo fan too,
Uh-huh.
like whistle rhymes and stuff like
Yep.
that. And it's just really cool that he got to see the Ox in concert.
Yeah.
And I've
Mike and
always
I.
wished to see Keith Moon because his drumming is so raw, and it just
Yeah.
so every time you hear the recordings, you can't put them down. It's like the Flaming Groovies. There's something about the recordings that they're so garage raw that it's like I
Yeah.
can't put them down. Like they're so good.
We had Cyril Jordan play with Oranger here a couple times
Really,
from the Groovies.
that's my dad's a huge Groovies fan as much as I am.
Yeah,
So
they're
it's awesome.
San Francisco. So Paul Koff he's the singer in the Seeds now. He was responsible for that.
Seeds are awesome too.
Yeah,
Ah.
we did a show with it was the Seeds and the Chocolate Watch Band in Oranger opened it. It was pretty
Dude, you
crazy.
gotta feel the same. Like with me just hearing this is like a trip. I'm like, because those are all
Yeah,
the psych bands I grew up. I mean, I'm 20, so like all the
yeah,
stuff that my dad's 64, and all the stuff he's shown me from all this stuff, and he's recently got into. We got into together, which is really cool. Like we got into the
that-
puppets together at the same time, and
oh,
being able to
cool.
see them at the space and them talking about those bands as well. It's like it's a trip to hear someone that's worked with these guys and stuff. I mean, oh man, we could have a whole episode to have you with all of them on the cast.
I
I
know
mean,
it's crazy. It's funny because right after we did that show,
hmm
Oranger wound up. We did a noise pop show in San Francisco,
Ooh, nice.
and we did a lot of those, but we opened for Roky Erickson, and then next year I was playing with Roky Erickson.
That's a trip. You called the other bandmates. You're like, guess what? Guess what I'm doing?
Yeah, everybody freaked. Ken and John called me. They're like, "Are you playing with Roky Erickson?"
I was
I
gonna
was
because
like,
I know Ken is because I sent him that we're doing Burn the Flames. He saw that because we're doing Burn and Shine too with
"Yeah,
Dave on bass. I got Dave doing the bass
cool."
again, which is insane. I'm honored that these guys took my word. They're like, yeah, we'll do it. I'm like, whoa, okay.
Cool. That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. They've been nice guys, and have been the experiences I've had with them has been insane. That's why this isn't like a Posies cast, but we seem to have all those connections because Ken and John,
Yeah,
of course.
exactly.
And I want to throw back, and we're actually having a Big Star episode coming up. I'll leak it now, hopefully soon, with Ken and John and Joe Benoit, or coming up to talk Big Star, hopefully. And if Joe can't make it, it'll just be Ken and John and me and Tyler, hopefully, because Tyler, his schedule's all over the place, but we're trying to get everything together. So it's
Should
cool that
try
we
and
could
get
do
them.
separate.
Should try and get them to wrangle Jody Stevens in, man, because he's the sweetest guy in the
Oh,
world.
I don't want to like go out of my way to ask, but that would be insane to talk Jody, talk Big Star too.
Can John get Jody to do it?
I might ask. I might ask. I'll say Matt wanted me to ask, right? I'll pin you down.
Because Jody's the nicest guy in
I
the world,
heard,
man.
and
He's
I love
so
Big
sweet.
Star.
And he's an
There's
amazing
something. I
drummer.
wish Alex was still around. There's something
Yeah.
about Big Star. I was listening to the feel. I forget the name of it, but it's the full on box set of all the demos, everything. And my
Oh
dad
yeah,
got the
yeah.
CD. It's Sky, something for the sky.
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Looking for this, I forget.
Looking for the
Looking
sky.
for the sky or something, and I was listening to it, and In the Street came on. Of course, that Cheap Trick cover is more well known, of course. But
Yeah.
I'm actually doing September Girls at my show, and I'm dedicating it to Ken Stringfellow because I did it at his show. He let me play at his merch stand, and
Oh, okay,
his
cool.
audience actually was like, "Oh my God, this kid's pretty good." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." I mean, that's incredible that Ken's done that. So I was like, "That's really cool."
Keep an eye on the sky. That's it.
Keep it. That's okay. That's right. Yeah. But there's some of that stuff on there is like,
Oh, it's
because
killer.
Alex doesn't sound the same from the box tops. He doesn't. I thought it was two different people for the
Oh,
longest
I know.
time.
Yeah.
There's something with his voice that changed. But again, the psychedelic era back then, he probably did a lower voice, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Big Star is truly his writing, his Bob Dylan-esque style, and I love it. And I
Yeah.
just love how raw Big Star is. And I got my bandmate into Big Star, and now he can't stop talking about them, and I love it.
That's awesome.
Shout out
Well,
to Barry on that one.
they got quite a catalog of amazing music.
Oh
So.
yeah, definitely. And I just love the idea that like there's stuff you can pull up, and I can hear it in your music too. In Oranger, there's a lot of emotions, and I just love hearing
Yeah.
solid music that comes from like the love of the Who or the love of a band, and to make rock references. And nowadays I don't hear that in music as much, and it's
No,
all
yeah,
fabricated, So
yeah.
I'm always going back in time, and I have enough time to do that. I found bands from the '70s just hidden under the water, and
Oh
like
God, man, it's a rabbit hole that you
stuff
can
like
go down.
Bentwind and stuff that I got a record of
Yeah.
Bentwind at a record store, realized it's like worth a ton of money, and I was like, this is awesome to be able to. And I have got the vinyl and all record collection, and I have all the Beach Boys and all that. But it's nice
Yeah.
to go back and find the groups that weren't as well known. Like I got into the Groovies because we found out about them, and they just recently played, and we wanted to go, but it was Cyril I think recently played.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the new guys, and we were gonna go, but it was too late during a weekday. My dad's got work, so
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
damn,
Yeah.
getting
You
old,
should
right? Getting old
you
sucks.
should you should check out like some really cool stuff like Krabby Appleton and
I got the 45. I got the 45.
Captain Beyond is another really
All right,
good
Captain
one.
Beyond, I'll write down. Yeah, my
Yeah.
dad's got Krabby Appleton, Frigid Pink.
Yep. Yep.
I love all that stuff. We've been site collectors for a little while, so it's really cool
Yeah.
to
It's
have all
it's a
that.
treasure trove of
Oh
music
yeah.
in that from that era, especially if you like fuzz guitars.
Oh, definitely. I got my fuzz pedal
So
signed by the Meat Puppets.
there you go.
So it's framed, but it's
There you go.
real cool because they thought it was very unique that they were signing a fuzz pedal, and I was like, you know what? I'm that kind of guy that would have Ken and John sign one of my like Ken sign the left shoe, John sign the right, kind of thing. Haven't done it yet,
Awesome.
but my guitar is though.
That's sweet.
But yeah, but back to you, of course.
Sure. All
So when
good.
did you start making music? That's a throwback way back here, right? So
Oh gosh.
we'll start from there.
I started playing cello in first grade.
Wow,
So,
really?
and
That's
then
pretty awesome.
I played cello all through elementary school up to junior high, and then in junior high I started playing drums, and moved over to playing bass, and then I started playing in the jazz band.
Oh, awesome.
And then that went into high school, and then I went to college. I studied at a junior college here in the Bay Area for a few years. It was a music school, and then I went to CSUN, to Cal State Northridge, to study music.
Oh, cool.
And then I left after the Northridge earthquake and moved to the Bay Area and joined a punk band, Overwhelming Color Fast, and all of that schooling that I had went right out the window, and I just started playing punk pop.
I love that. It's just all that music theory. Just
Yeah, I played jazz and classical for a long time.
yeah.
So yeah, I got to play, like, I won a scholarship out of high school going into junior college, and I got to play with Dave Brubeck, and
Really?
yeah, I had
How
some
was
really.
playing with him?
It was great. I won his scholarship, so I got to play with him and Joe
That's got
Morello.
to be a trip. Oh,
Take Five. Yeah, it was a total trip.
to
It was
play
like
with
a
Take
mind
oh,
blower when you're like 18 and you're playing with Dave
that's
Brubeck.
insane. Like, and that's not just like for me. Like for that to even register, that's like I don't know
I
where. Like
know.
that's insane. That's
I
awesome.
still wonder how that happened, but
You know what? I think it all happens for a reason. You know,
well, I
it's very
applied for
cool.
the scholarship and got it.
That's
So,
insane. That's insane. Oh, that's incredible.
but
Because I
yeah,
like
so
jazz too, so that's
yeah,
awesome.
I've been playing a long, long time. So, and then I start, I think my first tour I did was with a college jazz band in
Oh wow.
1988. So I've been touring a long time as well for over 30 years
So you've
now.
been around
So
for a long time too.
yeah, yeah, I have. So
That's
I
awesome.
graduated in '87. If
Oh
anybody wants to
wow.
figure out how old I am, so I just turned 50 this year. So
Oh, hey, congrats.
I made it.
You made it to 50. That's awesome. Yeah.
Exactly.
My mom's 50 and my dad's 64, and then I got, my uncle just turned 50 and stuff like that. And my uncle saw the Posies back in the frosting days when they were kids,
Cool.
and he got to actually see them in Texas. And I've been jealous ever since. But I'm like, you know what? I call him one day and I'm like, I got contact with Ken. He goes, what? I'm like, yeah. And then I'll tell
Shit,
him
now
about
you got
this
all
too.
of them.
Yeah, I've actually met. I think the only one I haven't talked to yet is Brian Young, and
Right.
he just added me back. So I'm hopefully, hey Brian, if you hear this,
There you
what's up?
go.
I got Matt
Well,
here.
unfortunately, you can't get in touch with Joe or
I
Darius
know.
because
Yeah.
they've passed, but
Sadly, rest in
they
peace,
were
definitely.
both great guys, and
Yeah,
they were definitely characters and
and
had
real good
very
musicians from
really
good
great
musicians.
chops and
Yeah,
really fun people to be around.
and it's been awesome hanging with Arthur and Dave and talking to them. I mean, I haven't met them yet, so what's really cool is Arthur is offered like if you ever come over to Seattle, let us know, and I'm like, all right.
You can't forget Mike Musburger either.
No, and I actually met Mike at the. I went to so I'll actually mention this because I didn't get a chance to
I'd
on
love.
on the podcast. Shelly and Dean had a wedding and Ken and John played it
Oh,
in
cool.
Hampton, and Ken calls me up and he goes, "Do you want to come to this?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, it's free, right? I'll take a free show." No, but just in general, and John Bryan was there, and I didn't know who he was, and I feel so bad now. I could have talked to John Bryan from Jellyfish days.
Right,
But
right.
Frankie actually told me when I went to the thing, he goes, "Oh, you met John Bryan?" I was like, "Not really." I said, "I regret now not talking to him." Like I was
That's
right
funny.
next to him, but you never know.
Yeah,
And he was
you
in,
never
they
know.
all were playing Beatles songs and stuff, but Mike was there on drums, and I actually got to hang out with Mike and talk to him for like a long time, and now he's playing with Ringo. I'm like,
He's not playing with Ringo.
"Oh,
He
okay."
he was drum teching for Ringo.
Oh, that's still awesome though. He's
Yeah,
able to talk and be with
I
Ringo. That's
I
awesome.
thought he was
I
playing
did
because
too.
when
Yeah.
they came through, I called him. I was like, dude, you're playing with Ringo, and he's like, no, I'm teching for Ringo
Hey, that's
because
still awesome though. That's still
it was
amazing.
Greg Bissonette was playing drums.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was Greg Bissonette and Ringo. So, but still,
Hey, but
what a fun gig, right? You
that's
got Todd
still
Rundgren and
getting to
Steve
hang out with a Beatle.
Lukather, and yeah, and Ringo. You got all these amazing people on
And
stage.
Paul sometimes comes out, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. You
So like
never
to be
know.
able to that's what my friend messes with me. He goes, "Yeah, you get all these guys on the podcast, but they talk to the Beatles. You haven't." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got you, man."
Yeah, Ringo covered a Posey song,
Yeah, it was
"Golden Blunders."
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he
And
covered a Posey
I heard that
song.
for the first time like, "Wait a second. That's not a Ringo song."
You
That's
have to
funny.
ask if you get John and Ken on there
Yeah.
again on your one of your podcasts. Ask them how they found out about that. It's a great story. I'm not going to tell it. That's theirs to tell,
Awesome.
but it's awesome.
Oh, so they didn't even know. Like they didn't know. So I'll let them. I put it right here in like a star and everything. Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. You ask them.
Yeah,
You
I
ask
will.
them.
I'll actually
It's a
probably
great,
text Ken later today because I told him we were doing our little podcast here too. So,
cool.
and
Yeah,
he
tell them
was
I said, hey,
excited. He's always been excited about like every time I tell him about the connections and stuff. He's always been like really like wow, that's incredible that you've gotten from that. And I'm like, you know what? It's nice that like on Facebook, I think it's cool that you can message these artists. They don't like you, then they can just block you or just So I
or
always feel like there's
ghost
a
you. Yeah,
security, there's a privacy. But I
yeah,
always respect that, and I've always I like the idea that you can just message and be like, "You guys want to be on a podcast?" They don't respond, then it's like I
yeah.
got overwhelming. Like now I got a hyper. I messaged Mike Mills of REM to see if
There you go.
you never know, and that could be something huge for something that like these artists they don't want to talk personal, they want to talk like music, and if they
Yeah,
want to talk
exactly.
personal, they're more than welcome to. But I'm not here to get a scoop. I'm here
Sure.
to just have fun, and it's awesome. And this
Yeah,
is
what's the
awesome. Just
scoop,
like it's like
Steve?
having a conversation with somebody, and that's what I aim for. It's not it's like an
Yeah,
interview, but you're more of just you're sitting here at my house, kind of
yeah,
thing.
exactly.
It's really
That's how
cool,
I like to do it.
and
So
I think it's the best way to do it. I didn't really prepare. I just have notes.
there you go. That's all good.
But so here we can trip back. We can trip back. There we go. Let's see what other questions I
Whoa,
had.
man.
Round it up here. Let's see what we got here. Da, 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 da. So,
Sorry, I'm getting
no
over the
worries.
flu, so my voice is kind of gravelly. But yeah, I
No
was
worries.
down. I was in Europe.
Cool.
I just finished touring with Spiral Stairs. I've been out with him for a long time, for like 15 years from Pavement.
Really?
Yeah, and we just did. I've done every record he's done solo pretty much except for the first one. So that's been like 15 years, I think, or 14 years.
Now, is that the same as the spiral staircase, or is that different?
No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
different. Yeah,
Oh.
Spiral Stairs is the one of the co-founders of Pavement,
Oh, wow.
of the rock band. Yeah, yeah. It's him and Malcolm were the two guys that started it.
Well, hey, let him know about the podcast.
Well, I will.
Awesome.
He lives in Mexico though, and he's getting ready to move. I think
Oh,
he's going
okay.
to move to Australia,
I've
but
been a Pavement fan as well, so you got everybody, man. This is awesome.
I got it all
That's
lined up,
awesome.
man. No,
That's what I. There we go.
we just toured over in Europe. We did some shows. He did some shows solo opening up for Wilco,
Oh,
and
Wilco's
then
amazing too.
and then we did a bunch of electric shows all over Europe.
Cool.
And then I went and visited some friends in Italy for 3 weeks, and it was awesome.
That's awesome.
But then I got to London for 2 days before I came home, and I had to ride on the tube every day, and everybody was coughing and sick, and I got home and I had the flu. And I was
Oh,
like,
that's not good.
so
Flu
I was
sucks.
down for like literally the last 2 weeks. I've been on my back.
Ooh.
So but
Happy
I'm
recovery here, hopefully.
yeah, I'm not coughing as much
That's
anymore,
good.
which is really good. That was the second part. But anyway, enough of that. Enough of the
No,
flu.
I
Rock
got
and
you.
roll. You get
Rock
the
and
flu.
roll.
It happens.
Rock and roll hoochie cooch. So, well, that's awesome.
Exactly.
You can like travel the world and stuff. I mean, that's the dream of every, I think, artist to be able to play with multiple artists, but also to be able to be known for your own thing too. And
Yeah.
them to call on you and say, "Hey, I really like what you display here," and then like with Rocky, like I imagine the emotions of just like getting that call from probably someone you looked up to as young as you were, and in that time finally hearing him and then being like, "Wait, is this real?" kind
Yeah,
of
I
thing.
kind of
Like,
thought it was a prank at first.
yeah, like who is these? Who are
I
these
really
people?
did because I hadn't met Kyle Ellison before, but I knew Kyle Schneider, and Schneider had referred me to the gig. So,
It's awesome.
and I was just like, "Is this a joke? Like, what's going on here?" And he's like, "No, man. When can you get out here to Texas?" And I was like, "I can be there in like 4 days." So
Give me like 4 days, please.
yeah,
And then
packed
you
my
get out
bags
there and
and
you're
was
like, oh
going.
god, you're thinking in your head like, oh, I hope this is legit.
Yeah, no, we got there and we started
That's awesome.
rehearsals and then went on tour
That is so cool.
like that fast.
Well, I'll definitely have to send him this the podcast here. Have him talk about
I
it too, because
will.
that'd be awesome. Because I would, I was just actually showing my dad Electric Larryland, because
Uh-huh.
he hasn't heard, he knows like Pepper and stuff like that, but he
Yeah.
doesn't know like I like the early like hair. Is it Hairway to
Hairway to
Steven?
Steven.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like the earlier stuff, and I got a chance to kind of hear some of that lost album of theirs, like little here and
Kyle
there.
might Kyle might have done some touring with the Meat Puppets as well.
I think, well, didn't Paul Leary produce? I think Paul Leary produced the Meat Puppets as well, so I know Paul
He
Leary is a
did.
Butthole Surfer too. Um,
Yeah.
but Kyle is awesome, and I love their extreme. I would love to just ask him about the extreme antics of their early shows, the stuff you
Oh
can't do
boy.
now. You can't do any of that now, and the stuff
No.
that they did with like the naked bald women, the car crashes on screen is just insane. I would
There's a
love
lot
to
of
ask what was going through his head, and he's probably gonna be like drugs, but I don't know. I don't know him.
there. I can guarantee you. I'm sure that there was probably a lot of LSD
Oh
going on
yeah.
at the time with those guys.
But like, and
So
again, I'm not assuming, of course. I like to like laugh about it. But that stuff from all
yeah,
this forums I've read, I'm like, wow, you'd be scared going. Like
man.
you never know what to expect. I mean, their music is so out there. I mean, they're indirectly the starters of trip hop, without
I
even, and that's on an album that never got released until later. Like some of the songs got reissued from Capitol there, and to have like some of those songs, like you listen to go like, wow, they just started lo-fi without anybody knowing these guys. Like
dude, I saw those guys when Locust Abortion Technician came out
really,
at the I-Beam in San Francisco in the late
oh,
'80s.
that's the extreme.
Yeah, and
Wow.
they had like midget strippers dancing. They had trash cans on fire on stage, and Gibby
The
Haynes
Butthole
comes
Surfers are
out.
crazy.
He came out with a shotgun and just started shooting blanks into the crowd and just terrifying people. And I was like, I'm out of here. I cannot handle.
Wait, are you serious? Wow,
I
that's
left.
too
Yeah, I
much.
was like,
That's too much.
it was just way out of control.
I
So,
definitely would love to talk with Kyle about
yeah,
that.
I'm sure he can elaborate on many
Oh,
many
that would be. We
stories.
would have a. That would be a blast. I'd be over here drinking water, like, who is this guy?
Yeah,
That is,
exactly.
but like, yeah, like I would show up, be like, I like the music, right? Like I'm a big, and then I like Alice Cooper, and his extreme antics are cool, but he does not hurting anybody, like
Right.
stuff
Or
like that.
they were just out to just terrorize the planet, I think.
I had a guy that I met. His name's Alan, and I think he used to be a radio host, if I'm not mistaken. I met him at the Meat Puppet show, and he was telling me about the surfers and like really getting into it. Like he's been a huge fan his whole life, and he was like getting me into them, and that's when I got all the albums and stuff that I could get. And I just went into a dive, and I love like the wooden song and just simple stuff like the lyric "dancing and ceiling fans." Who comes up with that?
Right.
Like it's
But
just
you
so
know
cool.
you know what the name Butthole Surfer comes from,
Where
right?
does that come from? Actually, I don't.
It's a term for inner tubing.
Oh,
Riding down a river in an inner tube, you're a butthole surfer.
that's interesting.
That's what it came
Because
from.
I know I love
There's a
the
big tubing thing in the Blanco River there in Austin.
really.
Yeah, and that's what that term comes
That's
from.
actually really cool. That is
It's pretty
awesome.
funny. There you go. See, you learned something.
I did, and it's not even what I expected. Look at that. Look at this. I'm talking to a guy, that I would not even expect to like, I don't even bring up the butthole surfers, on that kind of like you don't usually bring them up in a podcast, unless you're
Funny.
talking to them or you're that because like most people like they hear the name and you're like who that like they don't
Yeah.
really care. But
It's
I love
the 6
the
degrees of
oddity.
separation.
Yeah, exactly. And I started like trying to learn their songs, but they are very hard because they're just so out there. And
Yeah, I
like,
don't
and I'm
think
talking
they
about the
knew what
music
the hell
side
they
of
were
it
doing.
too.
Yeah, I don't think
Crazy.
they knew what the hell they were doing.
No,
so.
I think like you said, like it could have been something other like happening because there's
Yeah.
times where you go back and you're like, that's not even a chord progression. What is that?
Right.
And it just works. It works for them, but you try to replicate it, which makes their music like uncopyable. So it's
Yeah,
really cool.
exactly.
Which I think is cool when you brand yourself. Back then, it's like really awesome. And
Yeah,
it's,
totally.
and cool, and it's probably like really cool for the idea, just like the name being so out there, and then Pepper really being the only radio big hit, and that was later.
Yeah.
Like I
that
know,
was
and now they
way
play it
later.
in nonstop. Play it where I am. It's like
Oh,
I'm
Jesus.
tired, like not tired of hearing it, but they haven't played it in a while. But when I do my DJ, I DJ too. So like
Uh-huh.
I did my dad's work one time, and I threw it on there, and I was like, I don't know like how it's gonna be received. But one of the guys who's a huge '90s alternative nut
Mhm.
came up to me and he goes, "You just played Pepper. Respect." I was like, "Thank you." He was like, "I'm a huge surfer fan." I'm like, "I just played something that you never expect
That's
at your
funny.
picnic at work." So it was really cool. It was just a lot of fun, So that's
Yeah,
cool.
totally.
So how was it? How was it working with Kyle? We'll go back on that, like working with him and all that stuff too.
Oh, it
Like,
was great. We just basically with Roky,
yeah.
we just kind of approached doing like the Evil One era of his stuff. Kind of
Three-headed
like
dog.
yeah,
The
Two-Headed
alien
Dog.
stuff, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did the Two-Headed Dog. It was all the alien stuff
That's
basically.
and all the stuff where he's like really repetitive, but also really good.
Well, we just treated
I
it
love
like we were Black Sabbath basically.
Oh,
so,
that's sick.
so it just came out really, really heavy. I think on a lot of those festivals that we did in Europe, I was using 2 full SVT stacks with like 3 different
Oh, I wish
fuzz
I was there.
pedals. So
Oh.
it was loud.
My head be screaming.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to be in front row for that unless you got the top line.
Oh, dude, I wore earplugs
Yeah,
that
you have
entire
to.
tour. It
Oh,
was
that's
so loud.
crazy. Especially if
was
you're doing it
so
all
loud.
the time too. Like it's not just once, It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's demanding on the ears.
But it's definitely fun to play through 2 SVTs with a gigantic fuzz pedal.
And just to be on the stage with Roky too, like, and so you got the fun of all the guitar tech, and if you're like, I could tell you're like into that, and that's all like all the nerding about that, and then to have the guy that I remember like it's kind of like what Frankie told me with working with Ken and John. All of a sudden, he goes, I'm sitting there on the drums, and it didn't hit me until like halfway through a show that we did in France. I'm with Ken and John. So like it's like you probably didn't get hit on the show. Like I'm with Roky right now.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It's so cool to have the feeling of that, and it's
We
just
hit-
something that every artist probably strives for, definitely.
We were going to play in Norway, and we're at the airport in
Yeah.
Austin, and we get up, we get to the gate, and we're all there, and this guy walks up, and it's Billy Gibbons
Oh,
from
whoa.
ZZ Top, and he and Roky had gone way back, and he was on a connecting flight going somewhere else, and he'd heard that Roky was coming by, and so he found out what gate he was at and waited for him, and met the whole band and we hung out with Billy for a
That is
while.
freaking awesome, dude.
Yeah,
That
I've
is
met Billy a few
something.
times. He's a friend of
All these
mine, Bob
connections.
Merlis, does their publicist. He's their publicist for
Oh,
ZZ. And so
nice.
and Ian Moore had toured with them a bunch.
Oh, really?
And so yeah, so and basically when we would play at South by Southwest and do Rocky's Ice Cream Social, Billy would come up every year and play the jug part on his guitar for "You're Gonna Miss Me."
Oh, wow.
So he sat in with us a bunch, and he's a really nice, but another one of the nicest guys in rock and roll.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
Yeah, I love
pretty
the
cool.
You're Gonna Miss Me is one of my favorites, of course, because I mean, 13th Floor Elevators is one of the coolest psych bands of that era, and it made Texas psych above everyone else at that time too. Because you had the
Yeah,
San Francisco psych, Texas psych, and I believe you had the Bostonian psych, if I'm not mistaken, of some bands too. There wasn't like a. I know there's the three main hubs. If I'm, I know there's like bands like Bubble Puppy, and I think
yeah.
Rocky was working with Bubble Puppy at one point, or on the same label of international artists.
I
If I'm not
think they were
mistaken.
on the same label. Yeah,
Label, yeah, because I remember reading, and I think we thought Rocky was in the band, but he wasn't, and
it
then it
was
was
out of
more, I think, the same
Houston.
label.
I think they did a lot of shows together at the
Yeah, I think they
time.
headlined. That would make, because then the internet likes to mix those things together. Like, oh, he was in there, and it's like, no, wait a second, it's just headlines, you know.
Yeah.
That's really
What,
cool though to
what was
have
that
like.
Bubble Puppy song, "Hot Smoke and
Yeah,
Sassafras"? Yeah,
yeah.
that's a great song.
I love that whole album is fantastic. My dad got me into it again, and because Hot Smoke came out and he knew that song, but he goes, he didn't really get in. A lot of times you just get into the one song, you go down the record store, you get the 45, and
Right.
you didn't get the albums, you couldn't afford them back then, they were
And
expensive.
now you can go on the internet and
And
it's like
you can
it's
either
all
like
there.
it's all there. You can have the vinyl rips that people put up. That's why I love the community of certain artists. You can really get into it. Like I got a bunch of Ken and John stuff from their live shows that people have sent, and they're okay with it, which is really cool. I mean, I think they
Yeah.
are, but
No, I don't think they mind.
yeah, and I've talked to Ken about it too, because he's like sent me some stuff, and John too, and it's just really cool. Like I love John Hour's solo stuff, I love Ken's solo stuff, so it's really cool to hear all the like how the like, because it's you hear the perfected stuff, like throw like the Beatles in the mix, and all of a sudden
Right.
you get the White Album where you get a garage version of them, and you're
Right.
like, wait, that's better. What is
Yeah.
this? And I love the White Album a ton, so it's like this is really cool to hear raw, non-perfected, power popped Beatles,
Yeah, I was going to tell you too that
Yeah,
last track on the last track of Every Kind of Light
yeah.
is I finally found a jungle I like.
Yeah. Finally
That's
find a jungle I like.
that's straight up. Listen to the horns at the end of that. That's a buddy of ours. This guy Lewis came in from the Polyphonic Spree and played all the horns on it.
Yeah.
It's basically a straight up rip off of "My Life Is in Jeopardy."
Oh, really?
Yeah, listen to it because the end it
Now
goes.
I'm gonna check
Da,
this
da,
out.
da, 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 ba, ba, ba. It's all the horns. Total Who rip
It
off
is a
again.
Who. I know when I heard that, because that's the got to get to the airplane.
Yeah,
It's Entwistle, and then that Entwistle, the French horn and all that. Actually,
that's
I picked up French horn because of Entwistle. Now you know what? I heard
yeah,
that in Jungle, and I didn't. In my head, I'm like, I like this a lot. Why do I like this a ton
and that's
more?
Lewis is the French horn player for the Polyphonic Spree.
Oh,
So we did a
you've been
bunch of
tripping
shows in
all
Europe.
day.
We did a bunch of shows with them in Europe with the Spree, and we wound up hanging out with Lewis a bunch. And when we went to New York, we were like, "Hey man, you gotta come sit in with us and play this song. We want you to record it."
I feel like that's why you guys are so easy to like give back to these newer artists starting out. Like it depends on like some artists they go around, they're like, they don't need to because they've had, and it makes sense, whatever. But I feel like you and to come on the podcast and be able to share all these stories, it's because
Oh
what, it's
yeah,
like actually some people have interest, and it's like really cool to be able to share that and to people that actually like it's cool to have that. And I like
yeah,
the idea that like Ken and John have like never like mostly Ken on this point too, and to throw them back just in the mix as well. Because we're on the same page here, is to have the idea that like Ken has like offered me, like I asked him the other day like kind of like pricing for his ratings because I would love to
mhm.
do a song, just one. I wrote a song with his vocals in
Oh
mind,
yeah,
and to have those references to other bands and to have all that stuff is just really cool. And
yeah.
I'd love to have a do song with you if you ever got a chance too. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. Well,
That'd be
we
awesome.
can talk about that
Yeah.
in the future for sure.
Awesome, cool, sweet. Yeah, I
Cool.
love the idea that you can come up and you just message these artists, and I don't urge people to bother these artists. Don't go around. That's not it. That's not ever. That's just use common sense. But if you ever get a chance to talk to someone you really look up to, it kind of just changes your outlook on life. It changes that,
Yeah.
like, I actually kind of matter.
Well, it
It's really
won't
cool.
happen unless you reach out.
Yeah, I remember going back, like I was like, oh, that's Tyler was like, try to get Matt Harris at one point, and I'm sorry Tyler couldn't be on today, which kind of,
Yeah.
but
Sorry. Hey,
we'll have you
Tyler.
on again definitely.
Cool. Yeah,
Give
I
him a
got
chance too.
hour. I could talk to you guys for hours about
Oh,
this stuff.
perfect. We got, and then also I could probably come up with more, more stories to add to the
Yeah,
mix and
we
more
can have a
questions in
part
the
two.
future. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
definitely.
have a
And
part
actually,
two. And
yeah, the goal of the podcast is to come on and talk about other bands. So if we do a Rocky cast, guess what? You're definitely gonna be on.
oh,
I'm definitely
for
would,
sure,
because you
man.
got the information. And actually, if I can get a hold of Kyle from the
Kyle, yeah,
Surfers, have both of you
I'm
guys.
sure.
And I
For
know, and I'll
sure.
start talking about the other connections too. The guy from the YouTube and all that too. So that'd be
Oh yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
We'll
There's a
keep in
million of
contact.
them.
But we're not done yet. We still got more.
All right,
Um,
shoot, what you got?
yeah, I wanted to see. So you got all the Orange albums. I'm just gonna pop up on YouTube real quick. Give me a sec. And I wanted to
Yeah,
ask,
go
like,
for it.
like certain like eras. I didn't get a chance to listen to everything, of course. So
Sure,
I'm
there's a
trying to,
lot
I'm
of.
catching up now. And I'm, like I said, at Twilight Vibration Land dragged me right by the name. Oh, Mike Love, Not War.
Uh-huh.
I love the name of that song. What was the thought? And that's on the first album, right? For you guys.
Yeah, that was the first album on
That's just an odd. I was
Doorway
listening
to
like when I see
Norway.
my Bonnie lay over the ocean be redone to Mike Love. So I wanted to ask, what was going through your heads during that one? I love that.
We were going through a big Beach Boys
Oh,
phase, and
nice.
we always thought that Mike Love was kind of came off as a real ass
Oh,
sometimes, and so I don't know. We were just riffing on
that's
that
awesome.
thing, and yeah, I don't even remember how it happened. It happened so fast, like that. With that album, everything was so organic and just so quick. Um,
That's
that was
awesome.
the first single we ever released, actually.
Really?
And ironically, today is the 40th anniversary of the B side that we put out, which is a cover of the
Well,
Monkees'
here we.
Porpoise song.
Really?
Yeah,
That
from the
is
movie
awesome.
Head, and that
Yeah, with
today
Frank
is the
Zappa.
yeah today is the 40th anniversary of that,
Well,
and
there we
that's
go.
the song that kicks off that movie. So we love Mike and I heard that on the radio going to practice
Good
one
timing then.
day, and we sat in the car and we waited for like 5 songs until the DJ came on and said who it was because we had no idea.
And you
We
heard
had
you
never,
like probably freaked out. Like you're not gonna expect that to be
yeah,
the Monkees.
we were like, "What the
That's not the
hell is
Monkees.
this? This is so cool." It sounded like like a '60s Flaming Lips to me.
Yeah. Oh
Just
yeah.
had that whole orchestrated ending and stuff in it with all the sirens and whale sounds and
I
shit. And
love
we were
the
just like,
and to have a monkey sound like that, it's like, what is that?
yeah. And that song's written by Carole King and Jerry Goffin, so that's
Yeah.
even crazier. It's like,
And to have Frank
wow.
Zappa in the movie,
Yeah,
which I
there's
love.
a
I
lot.
love
Yeah,
Zappa. I'm a huge Zappa head. So
cool.
yeah, sweet.
So that was it's that yeah that whole record was really we did it really quick and we had kind of practiced the songs a bunch. We had the ideas kind of down, but it was sort of like we were still writing the songs while we're recording them. So it was sort of like I say, it just sort of happened real organically and really quickly.
And I see you covered Mr. Sandman too by the Quartets there. That's
Yeah,
awesome. I'm looking on the
did that.
wiki page.
Yeah,
I'm using wiki.
we did that for Stubbs the Zombie
Ah,
video game,
cool. Oh,
and
really?
yeah, it's in
Oh,
that. If you go
awesome.
into, there's like one of the scenes in the video game is you go into a soda fountain
Yeah.
and you go up and you hit play on the jukebox and it's that.
Oh, that's got to be
It's
cool.
like a
That's got to
little
be
Easter
awesome. Just
egg.
to dig something little
Yeah,
like retro like that. And that's the Xbox, old. That's awesome.
yeah.
That's
We actually got a letter from the I guess the granddaughter of the singer of the Chordettes heard it on college radio in Cleveland and played it for her
really
grandma, and she sent us a letter saying that it was her favorite version of it
of her
that
own.
she had
That
heard
is
covered
incredible.
from the Chordettes, and Mike and I tripped out because we were like,
I just
that's
got
really
chills.
interesting because we wanted it to be like a '70s Beach Boys version of it,
Of it.
basically was
Yeah.
what we were going for.
I like
Anyway,
doing
yeah,
that too. I like changing, like having a song you cover and not doing it exact. Like
yeah,
doing
yeah,
it like its
exactly.
own way. Like if I were to cover Rocky, kind of put my own taste spin
You
on
gotta
it.
put you gotta put your
Because
own
if you do
spin.
everything the same, like there's songs that like, you don't really mess with Sinatra. You don't try to like there's
Yeah,
things that you want to keep in the era. And it's cool that you could
yeah,
do like a cool version of it, but you don't go around like saying this is like, you but then there's songs like Mr. Sandman that needs that little update, and it's
right.
really cool. Like I love the version the Who did of Heatwave
Oh
by
yeah,
Martha
that's a
and the
great.
Vandals. It's one of my
Yeah, yeah.
favorites. and
That's
it's
great.
really cool that the Who, cover, and then the James Brown covers they do on the first album, like My Generation
Yeah,
stuff, is insane. And I got the bonus tracks and stuff, and they're doing like Shout and Shimmy,
yeah.
and it's like, oh my god.
I mean, that's all they did in the beginning was they were just a cover band
Yeah,
playing
the High
dances,
Numbers there, right? Or
Yeah, the
The
high
Zoot
numbers.
Suits, or I forget, it was yeah, High Numbers. The Zoot song was the yeah. Yeah, that's right. And then they
A
kind of
lot
like
of
with the
those,
Beatles coming in, they're like, we got to do our own thing.
yeah, well, a lot of those bands just started off as cover
Well,
bands, and
even
they
the
would,
Beatles too with the Quarrymen.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
early.
That's, yeah, that's
It's
how it
awesome.
happened.
And it's so cool that like you can go like through history and be able to look back and go, it's okay to be a cover band, like, and it's always been okay, because it's like it's cool to do covers of what you love, and then because like it's cool to mix an original that sounds like your stuff,
Yeah,
that sounds
totally.
like the covers, I should say. And it's really cool to mix the sound of like like have like you the Who, like, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to Sorry Paul. I turned that on for my dad in the car. He goes, that's
Uh-huh.
a Paul McCartney song. That's a Paul. Like he was trying to like think of the song, and that's why I
Yeah.
texted you. I
Did you
think I said,
figure
oh,
it out?
I hear it.
Did you figure out what
Is
song
it?
it
I
is?
think I sent it to you. I think I referenced it and I messaged you. Is it what is it? What song is it?
She gets up early in the
Yeah.
morning. So it's you never give me your funny paper.
Oh,
And in the middle of
we thought it was from Paul's solo
negotiation,
album, the Bowl of
break
Cherries.
down. No.
Oh, okay. That's even so. We were wrong.
You
Oh,
never
cool.
give me
Your
your money.
number.
You never give me
Uh,
your funny paper. Yeah, yeah.
YouTube, you can't copyright this. Matt is singing it. It's a cover.
Yeah, no, yeah, he's trying to sing with
He's
his
got the Paul
raspy
going on, but I love
flute
that it's
voice.
named Sorry Paul. I love
Yeah,
it.
because it's such a blatant
Oh
ripoff.
yeah.
And then the very end of that song, where it goes to that,
Yeah.
that's the end of I Dig a Pony.
Oh, I love it. That is awesome. Yeah.
We just took the little skippy bits out
Why
and just
not?
played the chords real
I
heavy.
mean, hey, I put Sparks in some of my songs. It's a very simple progression, and it's so much fun from the Who. Sparks is,
Awesome,
and you
yeah,
could jam off that for hours.
totally.
Like you could sit there playing those three chords and just come up with licks. And I became a good. I think I learned a lot of lead just by hearing and just playing along and wanting to play lead. Like yeah, I'll be out of tune for a while, but then all of a sudden I think it'll click, and I'm like, okay, that's how you play
Is it
it.
Sparks? Is it Sparks? Is that the song that's in Almost Famous where the kid, Zoe Deschanel leaves her records and she goes away? She leaves the records for her brother, and that's the first record he puts on, and he lights a candle,
Is that for
and
the
it's
Tommy? Because
it's
it's from Tommy, right? Spark.
yeah,
It's a
and it's the Who. I think it's
yeah.
Sparks is the song, and he's like,
Really?
and it's like all of a sudden you just see the look on his face, like the doors of perception have just been blown off of his
He
head.
just got his inner blind removed. He can
Exactly,
now see, hear,
and
and
feel
and
me.
feel. Yeah, because we were trying to figure out. So like, I like to throw. I don't want to go like I'm always that kind of guy when I do like gigs, and I don't know if other artists are like this, but they kind of put into this thing of like they get like want to do so much at once. And this is our first actual paid gig. And shout out to the band Hanover for letting us open and stuff like that. And it's really cool that I was like, I want to do Who references. It hit me that I've been listening to Tommy on repeat. Like I just love Christmas. I love all the songs. And you can listen to them on shuffle. And I accidentally hit shuffle. And the order that it came in was like The Miracle Cure, then See Me Feel. It was like a mix,
Right.
and that gave me such an inspiration to do this little medley at the end of my Lost in Space track
There you
alive.
go.
And I was
Yeah.
like, it's weird things that happen, and I'm
A
probably
happy
sure.
accident, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
A happy accident. Those are
A
good
happy,
things.
yeah, I like that.
That's what makes those cool bits in music, you know?
Definitely, yeah.
Like with when you would record to tape, there was like not a lot of, oh, we can fix it by editing it later.
No
Like
split.
in
No,
Pro Tools.
Beatles take 455. We got to splice this one, George, and then you got to
Yeah.
tape that one together with the other tape of the reel to reel.
No, it's like, you know what? Screw it, man. Leave it in there. It sounds cool
It's
with it.
cool.
And then,
Like our talking. There's times where
yeah,
like our first album. I'll send it to you. I think you'll be interested in hearing it.
yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Definitely. I'd love to. It's Sane Riot. Back when we were like right in the beginning, we had 3 members. Then it went down to just 2. We did 2, and I did a song called "How Does She Think She Does It," which
Hmm.
you could tell is straight Pinball Wizard ripoff. I even do the Pinball Wizard riff right in there, and
Yeah.
I'll send that one to you. It's very loud because the recording. We did it through a PA, and I didn't know what I was doing, so I was just junior recording, but it's a lot of fun.
And
And
you got to learn
straight up,
somewhere, right?
yeah, definitely. And a lot of I think DIY is the best way to go nowadays before you get into a studio and start paying money. Like, it's nice to
Right.
learn what they're doing so you can go, wait a second, or, okay, cool, I like what you did there.
With such an unlimited resource
Yeah.
now, with being able to go online and figure out how compression
Oh,
works and
yeah.
stuff like that.
Like,
And
and there's like a podcast guys like Joe, I forget his last name. He does he does Tyler's gonna kill me because we were he was telling me about him. Joe does like all these podcasts of how to make a podcast and how to do all the editing and how to do home recording. It's so cool that we can do that now.
oh yeah, it's
Um,
great.
it's awesome.
That's very cool. Yeah, we started, like I say, on a 488 Tascam, 8-track cassette recorder.
It's crazy. And now
We
you can
would
just put
take
up Audacity and it's free. You know, it's like whoa.
Well, I would use a the highest grade cassette I could get, the
Yeah.
shortest also, and then I would crank the vary speed as fast as it would go, so you get more surface recording.
Yeah.
And I would have a cassette a song
Wow.
for the first album, and then I would take the 8 tracks of that cassette, bounce it to DAT, and then send the DAT back to 8 tracks to 2-track stereo. Then I'd have 6 more tracks that I could bounce onto, and then I would mix it from there. So it was like I was pre-mixing the backing tracks, basically the bass, the drums, and the rhythm guitar. I was pre-mixing those down to a 2-track stereo mix,
That is insane.
and then bouncing all of that to 2 tracks, and then having 6 more tracks to do vocals, and then mixing that in, and then calling it a day. It was crazy.
That's a lot too, because now it's like I take for granted of putting on a computer and going, oh, I could just cut that.
Yeah.
Like it's all digital now, and I always
It's like
prefer
once it
wires,
was
but that's
done,
crazy.
But like once it was done, it was done. It's like, okay, that's how it was in the old days too. And that was sort of our aesthetic, kind of like, well, it's on tape now, and that's that, and moving right along. Here we go.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, you were gonna say that with talking and weird stuff on background, like in the background
Yeah.
of songs. Mike and I recorded this song called "The Winter Gardener."
Mm-hmm.
It's about Chauncey the gardener from Being There, the Peter Sellers movie, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
it starts off kind of with this real sad intro, and it's raining outside, and I put a mic outside. It was pouring rain, and this truck drives by at the end of it, but at one point in it, you hear this click clack click clack click clack click clack, and it was Mike's dog Kobe walking right by the microphone.
And just leave
And we
it in.
just-
It's so raw. It's
We
so
just left it
cool.
in. It was so ambient and weird. We were like, "What the hell is that sound?"
Yeah, you're
we
like, let me
soloed-
Paul
we-
stretch. This would be
When we
worse.
soloed it out, we were like, "Oh my God, it's Kobe walking past
That
the
is
rain
so
mic that
cool.
we had outside."
That is so cool. And I found out the podcast. It's Joe Gilder. So if anybody's interested in looking into like
Joe Gilder.
learn your own home studio corner, is the name of his podcast. And I've been watching it for a while. Thanks to Tyler Green, the Jebb and Greencast here. Joe
Yeah.
Gilder is awesome podcast to really learn. That's the only reason why I'm able to do all this stuff. So shout out to Joe.
Cool.
Joe, not Joe. Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to drop that name because I know how like when I listen to a podcast and someone goes, "Oh, there's someone," I'm like, "Who is it?"
I just found his site, which is Home
Awesome.
Studio
Yes.
Corner.
Yeah. Awesome
Cool.
stuff.
I'll
Yeah.
check it out.
Yeah, Matt, definitely. I think it's just really cool, dude, and he's done a lot. I think he's done a lot of stuff with the Jellyfish guys. If I'm not, I might be
Cool.
mistaking somebody else, but I love Jellyfish too. So, but I found him in the Jellyfish group. At least I know he's a Jellyfish fan.
Cool.
So real cool, and and just
That's funny you mentioned Jellyfish.
yeah, here we go.
This morning,
Yeah.
before you and I had a talk, I was messaging with a friend of mine who lives in Porto Alegre in southern Brazil,
Really.
about jellyfish of all
Really?
things. And have you heard of this artist by the name of Poppy?
Yeah.
She does a song right now that rips off a jellyfish
No,
song.
it's that weird. Is Poppy the one that's like on YouTube for a while too and was really out there?
Yeah.
Okay, it's like
kinda
on Poppy
weird,
stuff?
It's
Yeah.
kind of like baby metal or something almost.
Yeah,
It's like,
I know who
like,
you're talking
like
about.
ultra pop. So anyway, yeah, my buddy posts this thing about he posts the Poppy song, and then he posts the jellyfish song, and I was like, hang on, I'm looking this up really quick so I can I'll tell you what it was that he posted.
Yeah, let me know what song that was. Yeah,
So
definitely.
let's see here. So yeah, it's his post here said, "Sucking jellyfish on the hard face, huh, Donna Poppy?" And
Jeez.
let's just see if I
I wonder
can
what
pull
song
this
it
up.
was.
The Poppy song is Concrete,
Concrete.
and the Jellyfish song is Ghost at Number One.
Oh, ghosted number one. How does
And
it feel? Yeah.
it's that piano break, that boom, boom, boom,
Oh.
boom, 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 boom,
See,
boom, boom.
see,
You know, the kind of
sometimes it happens unintentionally, but I could tell you, like, just thinking right now, it's probably sampled
hers.
somewhere.
Hers is kind of unabashedly, but anyway, I just
Yeah.
thought you'd get a kick
Oh,
out of
definitely.
that.
No,
I was chatting with somebody in Brazil this
that's just
morning
funny.
about
Then I bring up
jellyfish.
jellyfish. It's like, ah, cool. No, I'm a huge. I talked to a guy just recently, Eric Barrow. It's Bareo, I think. I met him at Ken's show along
Hmm.
with Minky Starshine as well. Was
Hmm.
really cool meeting Minky too. But I talked to him and he just did an album with Roger Manning.
Oh,
And I'm
cool.
like, that's got to be like that's to me is like doing an album with you guys and stuff. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
Like that's just like people you look up to all your life, and to be able to just say, hey, you want to do something, and these artists are like, you know what,
Sure.
we do. We haven't done much, and it's like really cool. Or they have been doing stuff. We're like, well, maybe we'll make time. We really kind of like what you've been doing and how you. And that's why I think this
Yeah.
podcast, though we don't have a lot of subscribers, but our view count and stuff, I look those. Just, you know what, you didn't have that back in the day. Just to have to be able to talk to artists and have these conversations, I think we'll start
Yeah.
like getting
Exactly.
surfaced. And definitely, share this with everyone. Everybody that's listening,
Of
share
course.
this.
Yeah. Once it goes live, just send the link and
Yeah,
put
and
it
Matt,
all up.
send me a
So.
bunch of links to your stuff where people could buy stuff and everything, and let me like I can link it in the description and everything too.
The only place I know where you can get any of the Oranger shit is on Discogs at this point.
Oh, so it's all like. So I was gonna ask, is there a way I could buy it from you directly?
I don't have any.
Ah.
I have nothing but Mike Drake. We'll talk offline on this one.
Yeah, no problem.
Mike might have all the vinyl still.
Oh, I would be
Might
definitely interested
like
in
a
that. So
handful of
definitely, yeah.
everything.
Because I'd
So
love to support and of course and yeah. No, what I'll do is when we end the podcast, what I'll do is I'll hang up the call. I'll play the song, which we could end pretty soon. Actually, we had a pretty good
sure.
hour discussion. That was awesome,
Yeah,
and
man.
we'll have you up for part 2 definitely.
Yeah,
What we'll
for
do
sure.
is
I'll be glad to do
we'll
it.
play the song and then I'll play the song so I can hang up from you and just play the song, and then I'll call you back after we're done and we can just chill and
Yeah, that's
talk.
perfect.
I got a ton of time today just to chill. I don't mind. I
Cool.
like hanging out. It's
Cool,
cool
man.
that we can just call over here. Like we were just like I showed up at your house, like knocking on the door, like what's up.
Yeah, exactly.
So all right, let me.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, well, actually, that's a pretty good end note to end on. Do you have any last comments or anything you want
No,
to?
man, I just enjoyed
Perfect.
talking with you,
Oh,
and
thank you. I appreciate it.
we can talk about part 2 in the future. No
Awesome.
problem.
And I just got a
Cool.
message popped up at the end there, the notification. I'm going to mention who it was. It was John Soda James of the show Gotham and other bands. He's been on the show a couple times too, and
Cool.
real cool guy. I just wanted so people knew the Bing came up. I'll shout out John. He messaged at the perfect time. All right, let me end this here. I'll play the song
Cool.
and then
Yeah,
we'll
man.
be perfect. All right, I will
Thanks
call
for
you
having
right
me.
back, Matt. Have an awesome
Yep.
off-screen discussion. Those guys are gonna be jealous when they listen to the podcast.
All right.
All
Take
right.
it easy, man.
You
Thanks
too,
for
man.
having me.
No
All right.
problem. All right, we'll play that song right for you guys. This is called "Lay Down Your Head, Child" by Oranger.